Hi, welcome back to class. And this week we're moving on to chapter 7, and we're going to start working on one of our final assignments for the class. So we're going to work on that in increments. So I'll first go over that assignment, and then I'll go over what we're going to be doing for Module 8. So our first one of our assignments is to work on an administrative problem paper, and that's going to be broken up into increments. And so I'm sure you remember from earlier in the book when we were talking about financing, we talked about incrementalism. That's also a decision-making process. And so we're going to work on the paper in incremental fashion. So we're going to work on it in parts. And the truth is, this is an important way to solve problems. Usually you don't just hear of a problem and come to a snap decision on how to fix it. Usually it's thought out and you slowly think of ways to address it to make it better. But it's also a good way to accomplish completing tasks. So we're going to look at an administrative problem and incrementally think about addressing it. So for this section, all you're going to do is pick a problem. This is going to result in a very short paper. It's only going to be 4 pages by the time you're done. So you don't have to get too in-depth with this. I just want to go over the process with you. I'm sure you notice in public administration, we deal with problems and processes. And the truth is, the better you are at dealing with problems and designing processes, the better you'll be as a public administrator at any level, all the way from a street level bureaucrat to an executive running an agency. So it's argued that you'll be judged on how you handle problems and how you solve them, or if you don't solve them, how you try to ameliorate them or move on to something else. But this is how you'll be judged. And again, in public administration, I'm sure you realize that we use politics as a way to get things done. And public administration is how we decide to apply policy. So you can go through a wide range of problems. So far in the book and in the class, we've covered things like drinking water, which is very important. But then it gets all the way down to something as simple as dealing with a small issue in a workplace. One thing that I like to look at is human resource issues. How can an agency do better at staffing? How do they address turnover? These are questions I find interesting because I used to work in human resources as an executive recruiter. So I approach those kind of administrative problems when I look at stuff. Or you can look at things like how to deal with a social policy issue, maybe looking at dealing with more, trying to make your organization have more focus on equality. How do we possibly deal with inequality? There's numerous ways you can go with this. So you're going to spend 2 weeks thinking of a problem, and it's just going to be a starting point for your paper. This could be very short. It could be a couple of sentences, just getting a thought together. At the end, what you'll have is about 5 parts to this the solving of this problem, and we'll stitch them together, and your paper should come together fine after that. But again, you're going to look at the processes. If you have any questions, send me an email, and I will straighten it out with you. Or if you're having a hard time deciding on a problem, this is usually where people reach out to me because this might be difficult for some of you. Actually, most people have a hard time with this part. So if you have a hard time coming up with any problem, get in touch with me and we can talk. I could set up a phone conversation. We can meet on campus if you're around, or we could do this through email. But once we start, it's actually a fun process, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So this week we're also going to get into decision making, and I told you before numerous times that in public administration we often use the military for building cases. This chapter, where the case I use, is from a video called Losing Iraq, which is um, a very, very well made frontline video. And it really, really dives into the public administration lens at looking at how bad things unfolded in Iraq. This is a very violent video, and I also have a transcript for you. So if you don't want to watch it, if you're disturbed by these kind of images, there are parts that are pretty hard to watch. You can read the transcript, and I do have that for you too. So I do have that for you, just to put that out there. And I do understand that some people do not want to see this. So, but the case is a studied case, and this actually takes place over 2 administrations. So it goes over the Bush administration and Obama administration. And so we could step out of politics. And so when you watch this and you write about it, you don't have to get into a political lens of blaming one party or the other. This actually just looks at public administration. And so this spans numerous administrations. In this video, you'll notice that administrative decisions can change directions of things very quickly. And you have an opportunity to look at culture, processes, and decisions and how they all have real consequences. This assignment, you're going to watch this. I want you to take notes, so actively watch it. Sit down with a paper and a pen and take some notes. And you're going to choose 2 threads out of the 3 I have up. And you're going to dive into the film. There is no additional Dropbox this week, so it's just going to be focusing on this discussion. And my computer's going really slow. So the discussion questions for discussion 8. I'll just go over these with you really fast. One is looking at expertise. So here you're going to pick an example of an administrative decision based on the film and explain that this decision was made with expert advice, or if there was a rejection of expert advice. A major thing with public administration is relying on experts. The second discussion is looking at change. So you're going to discuss one of the many decisions that are made to change strategies in Iraq by public administrators. I remember some of these administrators were non-military, but they did have power over military personnel. So you can look at that role too. That's a very interesting mix. Kind of the opposite from Stanley McChrystal, where he was administering civilians. In this case, we do have some civilians who took control over parts of some military decision making. The last question is looking at influence. And so I want you to give an example from the film that shows public administration's role in influencing politics in Iraq. So you're going to look at how public administrators influenced a different country. So again, just using the video. And this is a real test for you. A lot of times we're studying something like this, and it's really easy to drift into a political discussion that doesn't have anything to do with the video. I want you to really stay on task and, put that aside. For example, I myself am very anti-war, and when I watch a video like this and I have a discussion, I have to put that aside and really put on my administrative lens and try to see what's going on and see how decisions were being made. So I do expect that the same from you. And again, you're going to be looking at processes and actions. In fact, public administration, they get very, very strong into looking at processes. If you get into looking at administrative law, it almost exclusively studies process without even wondering about the result. It will just look at the procedural issues that came up. If procedure was followed, that's what they're concerned with. Whether or not the procedure is right, they'll take that into account somewhere else. So again, if you have any questions, make sure you get back to me. This is a very interesting video, like I said, but it may be tough to watch. So if you have a hard time watching something like this, go ahead and read the transcript. Or some people might want to flip back and forth. So I mean, some people will watch the video with the transcript out, and if it gets to a part where there's going to be violence, they might forward a little bit and just read through the section. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, there is the discussion from last week, so you're going to still respond to your last discussion. So you're going to read your classmates' post on picking a state and the economic case for tax fairness. And so that's your other discussion point. In doing that, I do notice last week that there has been a change made to that website since I published that. So since I recorded that video, they updated the new tax policy, so they used the new tax law and the revenue from that, and they got rid of the map, but just put a list of the states. So if that confused you, just go back and click on the state, and you can still do the same assignment. You'll also have the state name instead of having the map. So again, if you have any questions, make sure you send me an email, and I would love to speak or get back to you. Thank you so much.